It's currently April, and we have just finished Q1 of 2026, and I have already completed my 2026 reading goal. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Marissa, and I like to talk about books and book design. So in 2026, I set my reading goal on Goodreads to 26 books. And I have, in fact, read 26 books. Actually, now that I'm filming this, I've read 29 books. Now, maybe when you clicked on the video, you were like a little bit more impressed, thinking I had read more than 26 books. But no, I personally set my reading goal pretty low, according to my own standards, at least every year, to take the pressure off of the yearly reading challenge, but also, I still like the fun of it. It keeps me motivated. I made a video about this and my feelings around a yearly reading challenge like way back in 2024. So pretty much now every year I just tack on an extra book. Last year it was 25, this year it's 26, and I always read well over that. I usually read about 70 books throughout the year, so I'm on track for that, but officially my reading goal was 26 and I have surpassed it. I thought that you all might want to hear a little bit about what I've been reading the start of this year, how those 26 books went for me, and if I recommend them. So this is just going to be like a little Q1 wrap up. So let's go ahead and get into it. First book I read in 2026 was The Eyes Are the Best Part by monkika Kim. This book follows a young Korean American girl as her life sort of falls into disarray during the aftermath of her appa's extramarital affair. And the majority of the book is about how she develops this fixation with eating eyes, specifically the blue eyes of her Uma's new boyfriend, George. If the cover didn't give that away, I don't know what to tell you. Unfortunately, this one was a little bit of a miss for me. I really wanted to love it. I love horror. I love gore. There were some parts of it I liked, like specifically the horror scenes. I thought her writing was really great. All of the characters felt pretty flat to me, even the main character, Ji-won. So I just had a little bit of a hard time getting into the story. And then I really don't even know how to put this into words, but I thought the symbolism of the eyes came across too repetitive in the novel. Sort of the whole point of the story, and how that sort of horror comes to life is obviously revolving around eyes, but it would be sort of paragraph after paragraph of repeating and those blue eyes, I want eyes, and I'm bastardizing it even more so, but it just didn't work in written form. I think it would work really well as a visual medium. Like if this ever is adapted into a movie, I would definitely be interested to see it. I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. You can definitely see the talent is there, and I think as she progresses in her career, she will get better at tightening things up and fleshing out characters. After that, I read All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. This one was on my physical TBR. I'm very proud to say that. If you've been keeping up with my other videos this year, you know my big goal is to tackle my physical TBR. So I've been really trying to make an effort to do that, and this was the first one I read off my physical TBR this year. And I've actually since unhauled it, but not because I didn't like it. I actually quite enjoyed it. I just gave it to a friend because I thought she would also enjoy it.
This one is a thriller that follows Isabel Drake in the aftermath of her son being abducted out of his crib in the middle of the night 1 year prior. Since then, she's been losing sleep over what happened to her son. Literally, she has not slept in over a year, apart from the occasional cat nap and blackouts. That's because she is an insomniac. This is an issue that she thought was resolved in her youth, but it has come back in a big way. The story picks up as she begins working with a true crime podcaster, trying to unravel what actually happened that night. The further they dig into it, the more she starts to doubt her recollection of the events that night. I had a lot of fun with this one. I am pretty picky when it comes to thrillers. One thing about me is that an unreliable narrator gonna get me every time. I love the way this one unraveled, kind of slowly revealing more about her past history. I ended up rating this one 4 out of 5 stars. You might get some of the twists, but you definitely won't get them all. That's a sign of a good thriller in my book. The third book I read was actually a reread. This has kind of been the year of rereads for me. I've done a lot. I've really been enjoying it, and this one was Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. I'm sure no one needs me to explain the plot of Twilight, but sort of the most iconic epic vampire love story of all time, you could say. This year, I read the entire series apart from Midnight Sun. I still haven't gotten to that one. All of them were a reread except for Breaking Dawn. I had never read that one before. Basically, on this reread, I gave Twilight 5 out of 5 stars. I just like can't even pretend with myself that I don't love it. Is it truly worthy of that rating? Perhaps not, but the cultural significance, you just can't deny. I had a blast reading it, and I'm sure I will revisit it again. If that's not a 5-star, I don't know what is. After reading Twilight, I started another series, which I've been tackling throughout this whole year, and that is the Game Changer series by Rachel Reid. I'm sure most people are familiar with Heated Rivalry at this point, but Game Changer is actually the first one in the series. That's the book that follows Scott and Kip. Scott is this pro hockey star. He's the captain of his team, except he's been in a little bit of a slump on the ice recently until he discovers this good luck charm, which is getting this very specific smoothie order before his games. Suddenly he's like back on track, slaying the game on the ice, and he attributes it to the smoothie, but more importantly to the cute boy who's making the smoothie. And sort of like the catalyst for the rest of the series, as Scott is the first, I don't know, I feel like I'm spoiling it, but I mean, at this point, everyone knows. All of the books in the series revolve around pro hockey players being LGBTQ+. Scott is the first book. He's the first one that comes out. The whole story is sort of how he struggles with fame and the pressure to come out and be himself in this public role he has as an athlete in a sport that's not really welcoming to LGBTQ+ people. By hiding who he is like damaging his relationship with Kip. I enjoyed it. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 star. Standard for a romance. It was fun. It was cute. No surprise, after that, I read Heated Rivalry, also by Rachel Reid. This is the crown jewel in the series. This one follows 2 pro hockey stars, Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov, as they are sort of the 2 best players in the league, and they have this really huge rivalry. Everyone is in on like the competition between these 2 like young hotshot athletes. What they don't know is that behind closed doors, Shane and Ilya are hooking up. It's just too good. Like, actually, I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. I don't play about that. It's that good. I think the reason this one stands out so much in the series is because this is the only romance that's between 2 hockey players. Most of the other books are one is a hockey player and the other one's like just some normal dude. Don't be sleeping on this one. I'm sure most people have already read it at this point, but if you haven't, it really is that good. Next, I read The Outsider by Stephen King. This is technically also part of a series, although it's sort of, they stand alone, which I guess is also true of Game Changers. The Outsider is technically book 1 in the Holly Gibney series, although Holly Gibney also shows up in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, which is one of my favorite Stephen King series of all time. And this book is crazy. It starts off with the discovery of the violated corpse of an 11-year-old in this town's park, and there are several eyewitnesses and fingerprints at the scene of the crime pointing to Terry Maitland, who is one of the most well-known people in this town of Flint City, as he is not only an English teacher but the town's little league coach. And with that much evidence stacked against him, they think it's a sure thing that they are going to take him down for this horrific crime. However, Terry has an ironclad alibi that puts him out of town during the occurrence of the crime. There's so many twists as the story unwinds in the way that only a Stephen King novel could. It's very gruesome and captivating and horrifying. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. You should definitely read this one if you're wanting to try out some Stephen King, but I think before you read this one, it's worth reading the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, because I do prefer it still. After that, I read New Moon by Stephenie Meyer, the second book in the Twilight series. This one's a 5 out of 5 star. Yeah, no doubt about it. This is my favorite in the series. And I'm saying that as a Team Edward girly. There's just something about like the yearning in it and the desperation of Bella that I think this is just Stephenie Meyer at her best. Like, can we talk about the gag of the chapters October, November, like when she's in her depressive episode? That's literature. That's her story. Then I did another reread with Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. I did a reread of this before the movie came out. Don't even get me started on that. Emotional, you will be tried for your crimes. So this one's kind of an iconic classic gothic novel that I'm sure you don't need me to explain, but it follows the story of a girl named Kathy as she's torn between deciding to be with her well-meaning husband or the man she's been in love with since she was a young girl, Heathcliff. But I will say, if you have not read the book, if you saw that movie, you should read the book because 1, it's fantastic. 2, most of the movie adaptations only cover the first half of the book. It doesn't even touch the second half, which is my favorite part of the story. It's just so good. This one is a 5 out of 5 stars, no doubt about it. Then we jump to Tough Guy by Rachel Reid. This is the 3rd book in the Game Changer series, and this is my least favorite thus far. It follows Ryan Price, who is an enforcer in hockey, and he gets traded around to like a lot of different teams, so he doesn't have this sort of secured rooted hockey family, because I just know everything about that now as I'm at this point 4 books deep in this series. Ryan is this like big scary guy. The enforcer's the one who does like the fighting in hockey, which is actually a thing. I didn't know that. But in real life, outside of hockey, he struggles really bad with anxiety. And the story kicks off with him being transferred to a new team in Toronto, and he's determined to get off to a good start, and he moves into the bustling, I don't think that's the right word, but the thriving LGBT village of Toronto. And after settling in, the last thing he expects is to run into a blast from his past in the fabulous form of Fabian. That's what the description says. This one is the story between this big, tough guy, wink wink, hence the title, and Fabian, who is more feminine. He tends to dress in women's clothes. He likes to wear makeup. He is a musician, an indie artist. They pretty much couldn't be more opposites. Ryan and Fabian had history together. They lived together briefly in high school, and there was a lot of unresolved tension. This one wasn't a favorite for me. I still gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Wasn't the biggest fan of the characters. It was fine. It was okay. It just wasn't as memorable as some of the other books. From there, the next book I read was Lawless by Elsie Silvers. This is my first Elsie Silvers book and potentially my last. This is part of some series she has. I actually don't know what the name of that series is, but I'm sure you recognize them. This one follows Reid, who is a bull rider. He's sort of the golden boy of this industry until he gets into a public fight that sort of smears his reputation. Because of that, his agent tells him he needs to clean up his image. He sticks him with his daughter, Summer, as full-time supervision for the rest of the season. I don't know. It just wasn't for me. I sort of was enjoying it at the beginning as they were still getting to know each other. They get together too quickly, and once they do, it's just so not interesting. Didn't enjoy the relationship at all. Summer was fine, but I did not like Rhett at all. He was giving me the ick. Sort of who he is as a person, but also just like his behavior in the bedroom. It was making me physically cringe. It was enough for me. I've heard the rest in the series get better, but I so thoroughly did not enjoy this that I don't think I'll continue on. If you want to convince me otherwise, feel free to do so in the comments, but at this point, I'm good. I am good. Following that, I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is another romance book. This one follows 2 writers, Shane Hall and Eva Mercy. Both of them are writers, and they have been writing to each other in their respective books for years. They previously had a relationship in high school, this very whirlwind sort of crazy situation that unravels throughout the novel as Eva and Shane are reunited for 7 Days in June, and sort of ask the question if they can overcome their past history and find out if they're actually meant to be together. I really did enjoy this one. I thought it was a really great romance book that has some really fleshed out characters. They're dealing with their own personal things alongside the issue of the relationship. Eva has a chronic disability, which it's slipping my mind what it is actually, but it has something to do with these horrible migraines she has. Shane is also dealing with alcoholism. He has recently become sober, but since then he has not written any new books, and he's convinced he doesn't know how to write when sober. So I think there's just a lot going for the book and a lot to unpack. I gave this one 3.75 out of 5 stars, which is maybe my most tedious rating of all time. I don't think I've ever given another book 3.75, but it truly, that was just where it was landing for me. It was better than a 3.5, but I just couldn't quite give it the 4. You know, as much as I enjoyed the characters and the relationship, it was too insta-lovey. I mean, it's only 7 days. The past story and the modern one, they both take place over the course of 7 days. I thought they had great chemistry, but I still don't buy it that it can happen that fast. You can round it up to a 4-star. It's basically a solid 4-star. Then tackling another one on my physical TBR, I read A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is the novella between the first 3 in the series and A Court of Silver Flames. I thought it was fun. It was a solid 3 out of 5 star. You know, it's a kind of holiday novella. I don't think it really makes or breaks the story. It's quite short. I thought it was nice to have a little bit of a pause between the crazy events that happened in the trilogy before stepping into this next phase of things, which I don't know what the next phase is because I still have not read A Court of Silver Flames. I can imagine. After that, I read Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. This one has been called the American Normal People, which I think is true in some ways, but I also think you really just shouldn't compare them because Normal People is much better in my opinion. It follows 2 characters, Percy and Joe. Percy is a music fanatic. She knows everything about the ins and outs of song making. She knows what makes a good song in terms of songwriting, production, but she has no musical talent whatsoever. She has tried and struggled to play instruments. She just doesn't have it. But Joe does. Joe is a very talented musician and an amateur songwriter. When he asks Percy to critique the song he writes, it sort of kicks off this years-long partnership and turbulent relationship between the 2 people. I think maybe this one really is a personal issue. I really hard time with music snobs. That is just absolutely what Percy is. Sometimes in a way where she's like willing to admit that she likes more mainstream stuff. The book is set in the early 2000s, so her version of that is No Doubt, which I'm like, No Doubt's good. What do you like? I wasn't alive in the 2000s, so what do I know about I was alive. I was most definitely alive throughout the entirety of the 2000s. But I was obviously a child. So I don't really know what the public perception of a band like No Doubt was, but I'm like, really? A lot of it just sort of rubbed me the wrong way, but if that's not something you struggle with, then you might enjoy this book more than I did. I landed on like a 3-star. It was just okay. I don't know. Ooh, and the next one is another romance. I've had a very romance-heavy year. This next one is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. This book follows 2 bisexual exes as they accidentally book the same European food and wine tour. They have not spoken since they broke up multiple years at this point, but they challenge each other to a hookup competition to prove they're over each other, except they're definitely not. This one was pretty fun. I'd say it was a solid read. I definitely have not thought about it one singular time since reading it, so do with that what you will, but I give it 3 out of 5 stars. You guessed it, another romance book. This one was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This one has had a really big moment this year with the release of the movie adaptation, and I actually already talked about it quite a bit because I did an Emily Henry tier ranking video earlier this year, so check that one out if you want to hear my full thoughts, but I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It follows 2 best friends over the course of like 10 trips as they go on vacation once every year, and they're struggling with this sort of will they won't they situation, and I thought it was delicious. Then I read Eclipse by Stephenie Meyer. This one is actually my least favorite one in the series, and it's what kept me from reading Breaking Dawn for so long because I did not want to reread Eclipse. I was really brave. I did. I gave it 3 stars. After that, I read Train Dreams by Denis Johnson. This one was adapted to a movie which was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, which was why I read it. This is a short novella that follows Robert Grainer, and he is a day laborer in the American West at the start of the early 20th century. I thought the writing was really beautiful, but I did struggle to get fully immersed in the story. Sometimes I felt like it jumped around a bit in a way that I just couldn't quite follow, and I am gonna blame that on the fact that I listened to this as an audiobook when I had the flu, and I think I just had too much brain fog to like really follow it in the way it deserved. Even still though, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's really beautiful, but this is one where I think the movie was actually better. Next up, I read Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. This is one of her novellas that was previously only released as an audiobook, but it has since been published as a physical novella. I listened to the audiobook though, and what can I say? If it's Ali Hazelwood, I'm gonna love it. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. The story follows Viola Bowen, who is a video game designer, and she has the chance to adapt her favorite book novel series into a video game. The catch is that she has to work with her arch nemesis, Jesse Andrews, who is another very successful and, might I add, sexy game designer. And the story takes place at a cabin retreat between the two game design companies, as they're supposed to be doing like an employee bonding activity to see if they really can work together. So it's sort of a snowed in cabin situation. Obviously this is a novella, so I'm like, the one critique is I wish it was longer. Then I read what I am predicting is gonna be my favorite book of 2026, Margot's Got Money Troubles by Ruthie Thorpe. I just put out a video fully dedicated to reviewing this book, so I'm gonna try not to repeat myself too much. Margot's Got Money Troubles follows Margot, who is a 19-year-old girl who has been knocked up by her English professor, and the story follows her as she decides to keep the baby but quickly realizes she doesn't have any money. So as a way of making money to provide for her and her son, she starts an OnlyFans. Based off the description alone, I wouldn't have thought it was going to be a favorite for me. It is such a tender and heartwarming story. It was just fantastic. There are no words. Actually, there are a few words, but I already said them in my review, so just go watch that. Then I went on a little bit of a road trip with my friend Eden. We went to Savannah, Georgia, and we read 3 books over the course of that trip. The first being Inheritance by Nora Roberts. This was my first Nora Roberts book and potentially my last. I was not a fan, but I already bitched and moaned about it enough in that video, so I'm not gonna harp on it too much, but I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It follows a girl whose name I already forgot, but basically she finds out that her dad had a secret twin brother. When he dies, he leaves her the inheritance to this sweeping Gothic manor. The catch is she has to go live there for, I think, like 3 years before she can accept that and her like $3 million inheritance or something. And as she goes there, she realizes the manor is haunted. I know it sounds like it'd be good, but it's just not. It was so long for no good reason and way too repetitive. It just did not need to be a trilogy. It could have been done in one book. The next 2 books we read were 2 of the Ali Hazelwood feminist novellas, Stuck With You and Below Zero. Pretty much same comments as Two Can Play. I love Ali Hazelwood. These were great. I gave Stuck With You 4 stars and Below Zero 3 stars. Go watch the other video if you want to hear my specific thoughts on it. Okay, I don't want to repeat myself too much. If you want a short little hit of romance, this little feminist trilogy actually is fantastic. Then I think I needed a little bit of a break from romance, so I picked up a thriller. This one was on my physical TBR for actually many years, possibly over a decade at this point. That was The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekina. When you pick up this book, you will assume it's about a jealous ex-wife who is obsessed with her beautiful young replacement. You will assume you know everything about a messy love triangle. You should assume nothing. That's pretty much what the back of the book says. And I like how vague and mysterious it is. I think it helps not knowing that much going into it. I had a lot of fun with this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It played with dual perspective in a very interesting way, and it had some good twists, some expected, some unexpected. Overall, I just thought it was a really solid thriller. Then another one on my physical TBR, you've heard me mention it, Breaking Dawn by Stephenie Meyer. This is the last book in the Twilight series of the 4 books, other than Midnight Sun, which is the prequel, which still haven't read. Yeah, this was my first time ever reading Breaking Dawn because as a kid, I wasn't allowed to read it because of the sex scene. So I read all the other ones. I just never went back to read Breaking Dawn because, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to reread Eclipse, but I sucked it up. I did it, and I'm so glad I did. I had so much fun reading this for the first time. I was like fully back there. My Twihart was ignited once again. I've been having a very Robert Pattinson heavy year. Still haven't done my big rewatch of all the movies now after reading this, but yeah, it was a great way to kick off the year. If you've been considering doing a reread of the series, or if you haven't read it yet, you definitely should. That's culture. That's history. That's herstory. I love it. Then I read Girl on Girl, How Pop Culture Turned a Generation of Women Against Themselves. This is, yeah, the only nonfiction I've read this year. I read this with my book club. I did enjoy it. I landed on a 3.5 star. I thought a lot of it was really good and really interesting and thought-provoking, just stuff that needs to be talked about. But I struggled with the format. Each chapter sort of tackles another aspect of pop culture. Like there's a chapter on reality TV, there's one about pop stars, musicians, there's a chapter on the Kardashians, there's one on porn. Within each chapter, obviously there's so much to cover in all of this that it ends up with her listing out a lot of information without actually elaborating on some of the details. If you already have a pretty good understanding on this subject, it's not gonna take you deeper into it. I think this is one of those books where it like lists out a lot of subjects and things because it's for you to be like, oh, I'm interested in learning more about that, so I'm gonna go do deeper research outside of this book. Sort of like an appendix in that way, but it's not actually an appendix. It's supposed to be this contained book. I'd still say it's good though. It's kind of a depressing read, but it ends on a hopeful note. And then the final book I read to finish off my 2026 reading goal was Common Goal by Rachel Reid. This is the 4th book in the Game Changer series, and this one tackles an age gap relationship. The hockey player is a goalie named Eric. He is the goalie on Scott's team. It's an age gap relationship between him and this guy named Kyle. Kyle is a fellow bartender at the bar where Kip works. This one was fine. I definitely enjoyed it more than Tough Guy, but I still don't think it lives up to Heated Rivalry or even Game Changer. A lot of the like tension between them is really good. The whole plot of the book is like they have such great chemistry, they're so good together, but they just can't be together because of the age gap. And it's kind of frustrating after a while to keep reading that. It's like, okay, I get it. Just do it or don't. I don't care at this point. I'm getting annoyed. You know what I mean? Because Kyle is 25 and I think Eric is 42, maybe, around a 15-year age gap. So obviously it's quite big, but Kyle's 25, like, I don't know. It's fine at that point, I think. So I still give this one a 3 out of 5 star. So pretty much everything in the series is a 3 star, except for Heated Rivalry, which is a 5 star. I have a few more left to read in the series, so maybe my thoughts will change on that. And there we have it. Those are the 26 books I read to tackle my 2026 reading challenge goal. And I've actually since read 3 additional books, but I'm not gonna get into them because that's outside of my goal. And I've already just told you about 26 books. So I've already said enough. I hope you enjoyed hearing about these books. I hope you took a recommendation home with you. And I want to know what the best book you've read so far this year has been. Please let me know in the comments below. I want to chat with you, and I need some more recommendations for, you know, what to read the rest of the year since I already finished my goal. With that, I am signing off, and I will see you in the next one.